The epoxy is dry now and I'm ready to glue up. So I did a dry glue up and I realized that, once I glue this up, I'm going to get some glue in the insert hole. And I wanted to make sure I could put a screw in there to kind of clean things out while the glue is setting, because there's going to be some squeeze out. So I drilled a hole in each of my cauls so I can get in there and kind of clean out some of that glue. I'll probably still have to run a tap through there once the glue's dry, but I can get most of it out by using a screw to do that. One last thing I want to do before I glue up is freshen up these surfaces. So on the inner blank here, there was some glue that kind of dripped here and there. So I'll clean that up. And then these surfaces they're pretty good, but it's been a few weeks since I surfaced those. So I'm just going to take a scraper and just kind of lightly freshen those up a little bit. I want to make sure I don't round the edges, so I'm putting a little bit of backward pressure on there. I'll do the same thing on these. I could also just sand a little bit, just very lightly. I don't want to go too crazy. Once again, I don't want to be rounding edges and things. So once I've done that, I'll go ahead and we'll glue things up. Okay, don't forget the cross pin. Okay, it looks like I didn't get any squeeze out there. I was pretty sparing with the glue around those holes. So I think I'm good to go here. Go ahead and take those off. Now scrape off the excess glue and let it dry for a little while. I've got the plane out of the clamps now. It's the next day. And I'm ready to go surface the bottom. The rest of this process is similar to a regular Krenov-Style plane. I did make a knob here, so this is the same wood as this side, so I think that's going to work out nicely. I did the wedge. I was going to use walnut, but I didn't like how the colors came together here, so I've switched to ash now. So I'll go ahead and knock this in, take a few passes on the jointer on the bottom, smooth it, and then I can, then tweak the wedge a little more. So I'll show you that when I get to that stage. The plane's ready to go now. So I finished up the wedge. So like I said, I'm using ash. The wedge is, similar to, the wedge for a regular plane, but it's, because of the longer blade, the wedge is longer. So as before, I decreased the thickness by the thickness of the blade in the chip breaker. and shaped it, and then determined that, I want my length a little shorter than the blade, so that looks good. I can access both of these easily. And I just put a nice upswept profile there. I've sanded the sides, I've shaped the front and back, and I basically removed as little material as possible here. So obviously, the dowel was up here, so I just cut a curve on either end. I have found that, because this is so heavy, I just weighed it. It weighs about 7¼ pounds. My plane adjusting hammer, because there's so much mass here, it doesn't really move this enough to loosen the wedge very well. So, get what you get here. The mass is certainly going to help when I'm using the plane, but it is going to make it a little trickier to get things apart. Moving the blade forward is still, as usual, but moving the blade back, loosening the wedge is going to be a little trickier. I might actually have to get a bigger hammer or hit it a little bit harder. So I've got everything sanded, nice and smooth. I've got the blade sharp, and of course on a shooting plane, I've just sharpened the blade straight across, no camber on it. I should also point out that when I was surfacing the bottom, I checked a couple times to make sure that the bottom stayed square to the sides. Obviously on a shooting plane, you want to make sure it's all nice and square. So I think we're ready to set it up, and we'll see how it works. Okay, I've got it set up. Let's give it a shot here. Now, I did take a couple of passes a minute ago just to make sure everything's good. Oh, that's nice. Okay, that looks great. Got some nice end grain shavings. The end of that looks amazing. So I think this works well. I really like the knob because I can get my hand there around it. I can put a little additional pressure up here at the front. That's nice and comfortable. Kind of put my hand there like that. Because of the weight, I need to be able to pull it back, but I can kind of grab there. This is all comfortable. I may end up rounding that a little more. That's kind of digging into my hand just a bit, but that's pretty comfortable. Yeah, that feels great. And there's a nice amount of lead in here so I can get some speed up before I hit the wood. Let's try it with some beech here. A little bigger piece. Definitely more resistance there. Still getting some nice shavings, but I've already got a nick on the blade there, it looks like. But I think this was a success. I'm really happy with this. The sides here, I want to take a look. These are pretty smooth and hard. They're going to get a little scratched up from here, but that's the way it goes. I sharpened this up again, and I've got a piece of maple here, and this is cutting really nicely. I mean, that's about as clean as you're going to get with maple. One thing I realized when I was sharpening this, I should point out, because this has a 40-degree bed angle, you need to be a little careful about what bevel angle you put on the blade. Right now I've got a 32-degree bevel, which gives me an 8-degree clearance angle. And I haven't ever found any real good discussions on what's the lowest you can go, but I think we're getting into that territory. It'd be interesting to try maybe a 35-degree and see if that makes a difference or starts to hinder the operation. You're going to get a little, as you make a cut, there's going to be a little bit of a spring back, microscopically on the grain, and if that interferes with the bevel, it's not going to cut well. So we're probably fine for a little while in terms of greater bevel angle, but at some point you might have to tweak things a little bit to make it work correctly if you want to go with a higher bevel angle. So all in all, I'm super happy with the plane. It works great. The weight seems nice. I was a little concerned it might be too heavy. Yeah, I've used it a little bit more now. If anything, I might have moved the knob back a little bit, but then that would interfere with the holes for the weight. But it's great, and given how much it costs to buy a a metal shooting plane, this is a great way to go.